Hello everybody and welcome to yet another battle of the week. Today we're going to be looking at an open training from SUNTZU. And today we have a match that I pretty much do not remember. So let's take a look at our deployments. We have a very balanced deployment. Looks like we're going to be pushing from the right side to the point Echo. From the Bravo to Echo. This one is from my perspective. And we see our three units forming first a defensive line at the bridge, and because there it will be a lot easier for us to attack and defend, and we won't have to fear getting flanked. So now that we see our opponent has captured the flag, we're going to push in. This one is specifically from, I wanted to share this from a Germanicus perspective, just to show people how to play Germanicus as a defender, as a unit that can defend their archers so that the skirmishers can do their jobs. So let's take a look how we're going to be doing that. We see an elephant, archers begin to shoot. We protect their front. We see cavalry trying to flank us, and we send one unit behind it. We try to weigh in what the situation is. The elephants are coming in. I do believe those are Hannibal elephants. Looking at their damage, that is not a problem. We just activate some vengeance and enjoy the show. The elephants are fighting the javelins. The archers are fighting the javelins. We have been outnumbered on this flank. As such, we are instead retreating. And especially the elephants make it a lot harder to hold position. Elephants are great at dislodging the enemy units from a camping location. See, if you were looking for an anti-camping unit, elephant was the one you were looking for, not artillery. Now, elephants themselves also have their weakness. The elephants, when they have their ad portas, their damage increases considerably, and as such they're able to beat a Vengeance Germanicus. This is not the case on higher tiers, of course, but on later tiers the Vengeance just goes out of control. And it becomes very, very strong. So it looks like on the right we are unable to push. In fact, we are getting backcapped. However, our team seems to be pushing on the Echo, just looking at the minimap. So a balanced match from what we're seeing. Our archers had to retreat, and looks like the infantry are capping Bravo. At this point it is important to utilize your uptime. You will want as much uptime as possible at the lowest cost. Apologies, it looks like I'm unable to even talk today. Well, now, here I'd like you to see when you're losing what to do. If you're unable to respawn, if you're not getting overwhelmed enough, what you need to do is go back to your point. Now, currently the respawns are 30 seconds when you do not have any chevrons, so oftentimes respawning is better. But if that is not the case, always go back to respawn and get that one back. So let's take a look. We are headed for a healing point. An elephant is following with us. That elephant could do a lot of damage by denying everybody on the spawn point the ability to heal. But the elephant instead decides to take a look at Bravo and goes back to the healing point. See, that is important. The cavalry support is on its way, and we have stabilized Bravo relatively. With the cavalry support, we will be able to stabilize Bravo, and with archers firing at the enemy, well, that should be able to change things. As you can see, the elephant is very effectively denying units to heal. This is one of the biggest advantages of such a unit. You can put it on the healing point and let it go wild. And that way they have managed to keep us out. Oh, just as my one unit was about to heal, the point Bravo was neutralized. See, this is one of the things that the new game mechanics really let you do. This is part of the conquest mechanic, so to speak. And this also protects their point where our cavalry was scouting Echo in order to cap or contest it. It is also important to be able to contest points, because if a point is being contested, it does not generate points, and over time, that difference can and will add up to the difference between winning and losing. In fact, oftentimes the comebacks happen that way. And so we are able to rout the last few units of the other team. Point Bravo is being captured, and we still have vision on Echo, and we're able to quickly get that back. Heal up at the healing point, and perhaps only send the wounded unit and not the other two. Now we're checking the situation on the rest of them. Looks like we have lost the push on Echo, and we are on a defensive position. Fortunately, we are still winning thanks to our point contention. Not to mention the fact that we have captured Charlie. Charlie on Rubicon is one of those points that I consider as a fallback plan. If you're unable to push either of the flanks, you should take Charlie, and especially if you have units that are very effective at fighting in the open, you should push Charlie. Oh, now we see an important distinction compared to Pug games. We are regrouping. The point that I had just selected was to tell our archer player and our other infantry player where we were going to be meeting up in order to move together to capture the watchtower and then Point Echo. This is very important in preventing your units from going in one by one and thus, pretty much feeding the enemy. Our cavalry takes the front and gives us vision. We noticed that the units at the flag were quite weak, and so the cavalry was able to take them. They seized that opportunity and are tasked with providing us vision. The fight continues on Point Alpha and Charlie, but I would like to focus on this flank just to show you the changing balances of power. And now we have a very strong push on Charlie. And the goal there, if we cannot win, is to hold the enemy as long as possible to make their victory as costly as possible. And now we had briefly captured the flag. That gave us an idea of what forces the enemy has. My skirmisher is keeping close distance with me, and now we see where the enemy is, and we know what forces the enemy has. Oh, and it looks like the other team has decided to push towards the base. We command everybody who is available to fall back to the base and able to defend. That way, see, the idea, the pushing the base is one of those Hail Mary moments, but it's also very, very risky. If you do manage to do it, you win automatically, but you're leaving a lot of units at a point where enemy can easily respawn and can teleport to. So, in my opinion, the best way to counter such base captures is to capitalize on the lack of the enemy units on certain points and then immediately call back in order to be able to respond. So at this point, yep, we captured our point and are now teleporting back in order to defend the base. I told the same thing to my archer player, but unfortunately they did not follow. Now, one other mind games factor that the other team can do is sending an elephant into the spawn point to make it a lot harder, or even pikes and stakes in order to slow down the enemy coming to the base. Now you can see that our opposing team has formed a very nice defensive circle in the base, preventing us from coming in while they are capping the base. This is a brilliant move that we will see if it pays off for them. It most likely will, but will they win or will they lose? I think at this point it is very likely that they will indeed win. Right now we are trying to push as hard as we can to get the units inside the base at any cost. Now we have an elephant intercepting. So the goal here is to rout as many enemy units as possible to prevent the base capture. It's just the base is just a few seconds from being captured, and all of our efforts would be for naught. If only we can continue doing this and neutralize, we will be able to win. But unfortunately, we cannot. See, at this point, I'm noticing another mistake that our archer player has made. He should have been walking inside the base and taking close shots at the enemy, or perhaps at the area behind the building, still being able to fire. Just a few seconds away, and we are able to neutralize the capture and equalize the amount of units that are in the base, thanks to our routing and additional reinforcements. Our allies were a little slow on the arrival. We managed to come in, but I think had the archers came closer inside the circle faster, this would have not been nearly as close. And right now, because we had capitalized on our initial strategic advantage, we're able to win in points. The problem with failed base captures, it puts you way behind if you were behind on strategic points. And since you are so far to respawn, you will be back to square one, while the enemy still is able to capitalize on their advantage. Now that we are able to cap it, the battle is turning in our favor. But yes, that's definitely was one thing that could have helped if the archer player had came inside. So if you're playing skirmisher, always come back to the base if it is being captured at no matter the cost. I mean, it's kind of obvious. If the base is captured, you have already lost. So it looks like we're losing point A. Our forces that were defending A have called back, and we have lost A, but we are sending a considerable amount of force to Alpha, and thus able to get it back. So now that we are very close to Charlie, I commanded all of our units that were at the base to assault Charlie, and thus bring our advantage back. We are analyzing what the opposition has at Alpha. Oh, looks like the enemy cavalry and the light units are capturing Echo, the point where we had called back from. This is very smart. This is one of the greatest advantages that the cavalry has. They're able to back cap, and we're sending reinforcements to Echo from our base. That way we are at the very least will be able to contest the points. It is very unlikely that he'll be able to make it, but he might be able to if there are very few units that are over there. I'm starting to form the defensive line, and it looks like our cavalry will be able to make it to prevent them from capturing it. Elephants are wonderful in defending points because they have a huge health pool, cannot be routed, and there are very few units that are able to directly counter them. And here we see just elephants being killed with the numerical advantage, and it is a very slow process. After all, if the point is yours, all you need is one unit, and that's what the elephants allow you to exploit. At the same time, we see that the enemy is trying to push at our archers, and it is very important that we defend them. We managed to stop the charge, relatively so, because you should never be afraid. If you are defending your skirmishers, you should not be afraid of going through your skirmishers and charging through them, because it is much better that enemy charges into you than into them. Their ability to be able to inflict damage onto the units that are engaged in melee makes them the tipping point when it comes to engagements. We see one of our teammates marking the enemy. Now we are engaging, preventing the enemy from trying to surrounding us and getting to our archers, because it is our skirmishers, our archers in this case, are the ones that are going to be doing brunt of the damage. But as you can see on Charlie, we are completely outnumbered here. It looks like we have managed to capture Echo, so that is always good. We can thank our cavalry support for that benefit. And now we see our cavalry coming in and helping us in capturing in our assault on Charlie. Oh, enemy cavalry to our undefended archers. Oh, the cavalry decides to change their mind. Oh, our archers managed to successfully dodge. That play over there, I kinda don't like it. I think both sides made a mistake. They were too hesitant on executing their charges. As we have seen from my earlier video today on Germanicus, it is okay if you're stuck at a point. As long as you're contributing to your team's score and you have your vengeance active, you will be doing damage. And now the Echo has been locked, and it looks like they are ready to capture it as soon as it is unlocked. The battle is swinging in our opposition's favor. However, we are able to push the enemy out of Alpha. We currently have a slight score advantage, but those elephants are able to defend the flanks very well. This is the great thing about the conquest mode. It is not based on just a few engagements. It's based on your consistent performance and your ability to dominate the battlefield. Like, you can always make a comeback. You have not won until you have not really have it in the bag until the game's over, basically. So let's take a look. I'm waiting for a respawn, I believe, at the base. And we have a respawn. We have more of our units respawning. The enemy managed to push back against our assault. Our cavalry managed to hold the enemy at Echo, which gives us a source of points for the win. They're sending additional reinforcements to Alpha to be able to equalize it, because our distance to Alpha is much shorter than that of the enemy. As long as we are able to neutralize it, this gives us a strategic advantage. Now that we have been able to neutralize it, if we kill the forces that are on Alpha, we will be able to capture it and keep on reinforcing it. So the logistics are playing a much bigger role in this mod, especially when you're playing on higher levels. And quite a few of the players here are old veterans of the game. I don't know if you are able to recognize the names. So they know the score, they know the old methods, and it is quite difficult to adapt to the new realities of this game, as we have learned today. Even if you have multiple times the kills of your opponent, it does not guarantee you victory. So now we are providing defense for the enemy. For our skirmisher units, enemy is trying to flank, but we throw some pilla. Oh, another flanking maneuver. The cavalry that was in reserve able to intercept the enemy's cavalry, and since we are being surrounded on all sides, I create a defensive triangle. This is an important maneuver in order to be able to defend your skirmishers. And because we were under threat of getting flanked, we are engaging one by one, and cavalry was probably going to peel away to attack the archers, and we're buying archers the time they need to do as much damage as possible. And our opponent is smart. They pull away their cavalry and their infantry. Just brilliant moves right there. They are using their maneuverability advantage and their numbers in order to be able to push. Now, are they trying to push again towards the base? I doubt it. But this way, we are not able to contest Charlie, and currently they're gaining more points than we are. So maintaining the status quo is in their benefit. So we see the battle continuing and the difference being closed. Looks like we are contesting Charlie. Even with very few unit numbers, you are able to do considerable amount of damage with Germanicus Vengeance. And that's exactly what we're taking advantage of. Now you can see that this unit has been holding for a while. That is because it is Sulla. Sulla is one of those units that is just there to hold you, and it can indeed defeat the similar units, but not against Germanicus. However, being able to hold the enemy is much more important in this game mode than it has ever been. Oh, looks like we're losing Bravo, but fortunately our pikes have managed to intercept that capture. And we have a rout. However, our enemy is forming their lines at Charlie. As such, even if we do manage to occupy them in front of Charlie and able to contest it, we are still losing on the other points. So the rest of our team must be able to use their maneuverability in order to gain advantage. Looks like we are currently contesting Delta. Yep, it looks like we have a force superiority at Delta and should soon be able to capture it. This is great news, of course, allowing us to gain more points. And as you can see, because our opponent has maintained the status quo long enough, they have managed to turn the battle around, and now they're gaining advantage. And we're trying to reverse that by capturing more points than they do. This is very fascinating, really. The fact that, how should I say, defeating the enemy hinges not on just inflicting as much damage as possible, but on utilizing the damage that you have inflicted on them to gain more ground. So gaining ground becomes the main currency. It's the ground that is currency. But if you have a setup and more skilled players that are able to win engagements, you will be able to gain additional ranks. As you can see, I currently have a unit that is at rank 4. So this will let you snowball into faster and faster victories, forcing your enemy to fall back faster and faster. Now I'm teleporting back to base because my units are exhausted. Oh, looks like our plans at Delta did not really work out. And Charlie still remains uncontested. However, Bravo has been secured and we have learned our lesson, and we now keep an infantry at that location. It is quite fascinating because of the respawn system. There's always some action going on, and there's something someone can do to turn the tide of battle. For example, right now, if our cavalry was able, we should be able to scout Echo to find out what forces they have, and if they don't have any, or have only skirmishers, which is very unlikely, we would be able to capture it at no cost. And thus, the units that are able to traverse the ground faster are naturally become more valuable in this game mod. Looks like we are able to neutralize Delta, which has given us the point advantage. Now we are doing another assault on Charlie, and we know because of my, higher rank, because of the chevrons, I know I will be able to win a head-on engagement without a problem. And we're able to push. Elephants plus an additional unit, not a problem. We activate Vengeance and then watch it fly. This really does make the game a lot deeper and gives you tremendous variety in the strategies that you're able to follow. The old strategies were only about trying to kill as many of the enemy as you can before your units were depleted. But now it made things a lot deeper and made that old strategy still very viable, as you're seeing right now. My higher tier unit, despite fighting 2-on-1, is able to easily push the enemy back. Elephants, other units, not a problem. As long as you're working as a team, you're able to accomplish wonders. Elephants, not a problem. Frontline, meh. Oh, but it looks like while we were talking about that the enemy has neutralized our point Bravo. And it looks like we have lost at Delta, but if we manage to secure Charlie, that gives us a lot of avenue to move around. One strategic mistake that I made sure as a team captain not to make was to push the base. It is pretty much pointless to push the base, and playing conservatively is very much rewarded in this game mod. So we know that the enemy has committed a lot into this engagement, and we know a lot of them are currently respawning. This means they cannot possibly have many units that are defending the other points. This is where you call in your cavalry to be able to capture the points that cannot be currently defended. And now their cavalry is doing a desperate charge in order to stop the neutralization of Point Charlie. This is another very important strategy that you can use that I think is very cheap and does need to be fixed, and I hope it is fixed by having spawn points much further away and spawn timers much longer. So now we see just, a single cavalry being able to hold so many units. This definitely leaves a bad taste in players' mouths. Of course, we report this to our cavalry, and our cavalry manages to hit them from the side and do a tremendous amount of damage. We managed to neutralize Charlie despite our enemy's best efforts. We managed to ninja cap Echo. Alpha is under attack, but we have defending forces at Alpha, even though they're less numerous than the other forces. And because we have managed to push the enemy back, now we have captured Charlie with our point advantage, and 3-1, in fact 4-1 advantage, we are able to gain a lot of points per second. So now all we need to do is maintain the status quo. Our strategy is to push our advantage wherever possible. Initially, I was considering using a conservative strategy as a basis, but what I have realized is that that strategy is not very optimal, and here is why. As the battlefield develops, if you play conservatively, you let your opponent dictate the battlefield. But even when you're winning, if you are able to organize and push, you are still defending those points as long as you leave at least one unit at the point and are able to come back. As such, you should not have a lot of your units defending a point where the enemy is not, and thus losing strategically. You should always be pushing, always be planning, always be capturing, always be doing something. As long as the points are defended, you are good. You should always be gaining ground, is basically what I'm saying. And if the enemy tries to do just a full force push on a single flank, that is not a problem, because you were staying flexible, you were staying active. So you could just go around and defend and take out their undefended points. By the time they capture 1 point, you will capture 2. And thus either maintain your advantage or will gain even further advantage. Here we see just a bit of scouting on the base, but now we are maintaining the status quo. 4-1 is a very good position to be in. And with the game coming to a close, we will be saying our GGs. And because our strategy was also based on not just respawning and coming back, but winning, I managed to get all of my units to tier 4, turning them into human combined harvesters. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.